Imagine you're suffering from severe, truly debilitating anxiety.
Right.
You go to your local community healer for help, and their best, most logical solution is to drill a hole directly into your living skull,
Oh, man.
just to let the demons out. So welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're exploring the foundation of how we actually know what we know.
Yeah, and why our own brains are often, our absolute worst enemies when it comes to finding the truth.
Exactly. And for this specific deep dive, we're trying a fun little dynamic. You're going to take on the role of the lecturer today, and I'll be the student trying to keep up.
I love it. Hand me my virtual tweed jacket.
Consider it handed. So what are we studying today, Professor?
Well, our mission today is to answer a deceptively simple question, which is, why do we even need scientific research? And the material we're pulling from is section 2.1 of chapter 2 from the textbook.
Which is going to show us that without research, we'd essentially be stuck relying on, blind luck or intuition.
Well, just blindly trusting whatever an authority figure tells us, yeah.
Right. So for everyone listening, I want you to imagine just how confident you feel in deciphering the world around you on a daily basis. You probably feel pretty grounded, right?
Most people do, yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this, because that skull drilling thing from earlier, that is terrifying.
It's a brutal image, I know.
Yeah. Why wasn't our intuition enough to save us from that?
Well, that practice is called trephination. It's the drilling or scraping of a hole into a human skull. And it's actually a perfect historical anchor for section 2.1.
Because they actually thought it worked.
Exactly. Our ancestors across various cultures didn't do this because they were sadistic. Based on their cultural framework, it made perfect intuitive sense.
Okay, walk me through that logic, because it sounds crazy to me.
Sure. So they observed people suffering from severe behavioral disorders. And their intuition, their gut feeling, based on their worldview, told them that evil spirits were trapped inside the person's head.
Oh, I see. So if the spirit is trapped...
Right. What's the logical, intuitive solution? You have to build a physical door for the spirit to escape.
Wow. Okay, so human history is basically just a graveyard of terrible ideas born from trusting our gut.
It really is. Intuition is incredibly compelling, but it's dangerously flawed. I mean, intuition is what tells you the earth feels completely flat when you walk outside your front door.
Yeah, okay.
It's what told early astronomers that the sun obviously revolves around the earth. I mean, you can literally watch it move across the sky.
And didn't it tell early scientists that the continents couldn't possibly be moving?
Exactly. The idea of continental drift felt completely counterintuitive.
Right, because our brains are basically wired to trust our immediate sensory input. Anything outside of our little local bubble just feels wrong.
Precisely.
But okay, as the student here, this is where I get hung up, especially when we start applying this to modern psychology.
Lay it on me.
If I look at physics, I can, measure gravity. If I look at geology, I can measure tectonic plates.
Right, physical things.
Yeah. But psychology is the study of the mind. I can observe behavior. Like, if an infant is crying, I can physically see the tears, but I can't see their mind. I don't know why they are crying if they can't speak.
That is a great point.
So how does modern psychology actually prove anything? How does it separate itself from those ancient skull-drilling guesses?
That is the pivotal hurdle of the entire field. And the answer comes down to a single word, which is empirical.
Empirical?
Yes. The hallmark of any legitimate scientific research is that it must be empirical. It is grounded in objective, tangible evidence.
So not just a good guess.
Exactly. It's evidence that can be observed and measured repeatedly, no matter who is looking at it.
So if you can't measure the invisible thought, you have to figure out a way to measure the physical footprint of that thought.
Precisely. You don't just rely on a cultural belief about demons. You systematically measure the underlying physiological processes.
Like heart rate.
Heart rate, cortisol levels in the blood, standardized behavioral coding, things that drive the crying behavior. You create a reproducible system.
Oh, so if I run an experiment in Tokyo...
A researcher in New York should be able to run it and get the exact same data footprint.
Okay, I follow the logic. But if empirical evidence is this objective gold standard, then why is the real world of science so messy?
What do you mean?
Well, I feel like I'm constantly seeing headlines where science says coffee is a miracle drug on Monday, and then on Tuesday, science says it's going to destroy my nervous system.
Yeah. The classic health headline whiplash.
Right. If the process is so objective, why does the consensus constantly shift like that?
Because Reaching a scientific consensus is a grinding, chaotic, messy process. And the truth is, that's actually a feature of the system, not a bug.
Wait, it's supposed to be messy.
Absolutely. When you are studying something as incredibly complex as human behavior, you're going to find contradictory studies. The textbook uses the explosion of technology in education as a prime example of this.
Oh, man. This is the ultimate dinner table argument right now.
Eh.
Every parent and educator is pulling their hair out over screen time.
And researchers are right there in the trenches with them. The textbook cites two specific studies that seem to completely contradict each other.
Let's hear them.
On one hand, you have a 2015 study by Shaw and Tan. They looked at surgery residents, those highly trained graduate students,
Okay.
and they found that implementing a targeted smartphone app actually increased their engagement and raised their test scores.
So technology is an empirical win. Point for smartphones.
But then you look at a 2009 study by Massimini and Peterson.
And I'm guessing they found the opposite.
Completely. They researched undergraduate populations and found that technology use had significant negative impacts. It hurt their sleep, their communication, and their time management.
So what does this all mean? I'm sitting here as a student looking at this data, and it feels exactly like being an online shopper trying to read conflicting reviews.
It really does feel like that.
Yeah, like you read one review that says, this vacuum changed my life, and the next one says, this vacuum caught on fire immediately. How are we, or the listeners, supposed to make a decision when the science isn't settled?
This is where we have to develop healthy skepticism. You don't just throw your hands up and say, well, science is breaking. You look closely at the variables.
Okay, break that down for me.
Look at the populations in those two studies. Shaw and Tan looked at 28-year-old surgery residents using a highly specific app designed for medical education.
Right, very focused.
Massimini and Peterson looked at general 18-year-old undergraduates who were likely using technology for unstructured socialization. Social media, entertainment.
Ah, I see. So the claim that technology is bad for education is just way too broad.
Exactly. It's not that the science is broken, it's that the context entirely dictates the outcome.
That makes so much sense. So evaluating the nuances, the sample size, the context, that's how we navigate the mess.
And we have to, because the real-world application of this research has massive consequences. Let's look at public policy for a second. Imagine you are the governor of your state.
Okay, I'm the governor.
You're managing taxpayer dollars, and you have a proposal to fund early intervention programs for low-income children or children with special needs.
Intuitively, that's a massive win. It's a great campaign talking point, like, who doesn't want to help kids?
Right. It feels good. But intuition doesn't balance a state budget. As a public steward, you need to know if the program actually works, or if you're just throwing money at a nice idea.
So empirical research separates the appealing idea from the proven benefits.
Yes. Psychologists conduct vast amounts of long-term data tracking on this. They look at high school graduation rates, future earnings, even incarceration rates of kids who went through these programs versus those who didn't.
That's a lot of data.
It is. And it tells the governor not just that they work, but which specific elements of the program actually yield the highest return on investment for the taxpayers.
Okay, so research keeps politicians from flying blind. But let's bring this down to a more personal level.
Sure.
Section 2.1 brings up this very relatable scenario. Imagine your sister, Maria, has a 2-year-old son, Umberto.
Okay, poor Umberto.
Right, well, Umberto has a speech delay. The pediatrician thinks it might just be a jaw muscle issue.
Pretty common.
But Maria is an anxious parent. What is her very first move?
Oh, she goes straight to the internet.
Straight to the internet. And within 5 minutes, she is drowning in unverified blogs and terrified people, convincing her that this minor delay is actually the primary symptom of a severe developmental disorder.
It is so incredibly easy to fall down that rabbit hole.
It is. So how does research help her?
Well, that internet rabbit hole is built almost entirely on opinions. In science, a fact is an observable reality. An opinion is just a personal judgment.
And opinions can be totally disconnected from reality.
Exactly. Without an understanding of empirical research, Maria has no life raft. She has no way to separate the terrifying opinions of a mommy blogger from the rigorous, peer-reviewed data regarding pediatric speech.
But wait, that raises a massive red flag for as your student today.
Uh-oh. What's the red flag?
Well, if facts depend on empirical research, then the quality of those facts depends entirely on the people discovering them.
That is very astute observation.
Because data isn't gathered in a vacuum. The biases of the researcher, what they choose to study, who they exclude, that completely alters what becomes a fact.
You hit the nail on the head. And the history of psychology is actually a perfect case study for your point. When the American Psychological Association, the APA, was founded in 1892, every single member was a white male.
Every single one. Wait, so the entire scope of human behavior was being filtered exclusively through the life experience of late 19th century white men.
100%.
That is an incredibly narrow lens to define the entire human condition.
It was a huge blind spot. But the textbook highlights how the field eventually realized that a lack of diversity wasn't just, a social issue. It was a massive methodological flaw.
Because they weren't asking the right questions.
Right. Diverse perspectives were required to ask better empirical questions. And we see this with the pioneers who broke through. Figures like Margaret Floyd Washburn.
She was the first woman to earn a PhD in psychology, right?
She was. And she totally shifted the focus toward animal behavior and cognition. Then you have Mary Whiton Calkins, who opposed the dominant behaviorist movement and actually became the first female APA president in 1905.
Wow, 1905, that's early.
Yeah. And Francis Sumner, who's the first African-American to receive a psychology PhD in 1920, he's often referred to as the father of black psychology.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because I was reading about Inez Beverly Prosser in the material.
Yes, her story's phenomenal.
She was the first African-American woman to get a psychology PhD in 1933. And her work wasn't just like academic theory sitting on a shelf.
Not at all. It actively dismantled the flawed intuition of that era. Let's look at the mechanism of what she actually did.
Okay.
At the time, the prevailing societal intuition, which was obviously driven by heavy racial bias, was that segregated schools were fine, or even beneficial.
Which is horrifying.
Completely. But Prosser didn't just write opinion pieces arguing against this. She gathered empirical data. She rigorously evaluated the psychological impacts of segregation on black children.
What kind of impacts?
She measured self-esteem, academic performance, and social adjustment in segregated versus integrated environments.
So she essentially provided the hard, objective data that quantified the psychological damage of the separate but equal doctrine.
Yes. Her empirical methodology was so rigorous that her findings directly influenced the historic Brown v. Board of Education Supreme Court ruling.
That is incredible. She used the scientific method to prove that a societal intuition was objectively harmful.
Exactly. And this empirical awakening wasn't just in the U.S. Laboratories were springing up globally.
Like where?
Well, Horacio Pinheiro founded early labs in Argentina. And Gudamudian David Boaz and Narendra Nath Sengupta established the very first independent psychology departments in India.
Okay, so we have all these diverse, brilliant minds expanding the field, but I want to get under the hood of the machine they were using.
The scientific method itself.
Right. As a student, I need to know the mechanics. How exactly do these minds generate their ideas and test them? What is the actual cycle?
What's fascinating here is that the entire scientific engine runs on a continuous loop of two types of reasoning, deductive and inductive.
Inductive and deductive.
Okay, think of it like inhaling and exhaling. You absolutely cannot have one without the other for science to function.
Let's break them down. I like the textbook's fruit analogy for inductive reasoning. Tell me if this tracks.
Go for it.
If I see apples, bananas, and oranges growing on trees, inductive reasoning is me taking those specific observations and building a broad generalization. So I say, all fruit grows on trees.
That analogy tracks perfectly. Inductive reasoning moves from the specific observation to the broad generalization.
But then I see a strawberry or a kiwi and they don't grow on trees, so my generalization is proven wrong.
Exactly. In psychology, inductive reasoning is often used in case studies, where you observe a few individuals to create a broad idea. It generates new ideas, but the conclusions aren't guaranteed to be true.
Right, so I have my broad idea, but now I have to prove it, and that is where deductive reasoning comes in.
You got it. Deductive reasoning is the exhale. It moves in the exact opposite direction. You start with your broad generalization and you test it in the real world.
Like testing a hypothesis.
Right. For example, if your generalization is all living things need energy and ducks are living things, then deductively, ducks must need energy. You test the duck.
Okay, but wait. We need to clarify some terminology here, because I feel like people use theory and hypothesis interchangeably all the time.
Oh, constantly. But they're very different.
What's the difference?
A theory is a well-developed set of ideas that proposes an explanation for observed phenomena. It's massive. It's usually too complex to test all at once.
Okay, so a theory is the big picture.
Right. So Researchers carve out a specific piece of that theory and generate a hypothesis,
Which is it?
a specific, testable prediction. It bridges the gap between the abstract theory and the real world, and it is almost always framed as an if-then statement.
Oh, like if I stop watering this plant, then it will die.
Exactly. That is a testable hypothesis.
Okay, so I observe the world, I use inductive reasoning to build a giant theory, I carve out an if-then hypothesis, and I use deductive reasoning to test it.
You're getting an A in this class.
Or hang on, here's my ultimate student question. How do I know if my theory is actually scientific or if it's just a really good guess disguised as science?
This is the most crucial part of the entire deep dive. For any hypothesis to be considered truly scientific, it must be falsifiable.
Falsifiable, meaning it has to be capable of being proven wrong.
Yes, the strict requirement to be wrong. And this is why human intuition often rejects science, because humans absolutely hate being proven wrong.
Oh, so we'll...
But science demands it. The textbook provides a brilliant example of this using the James Lange theory of emotion.
Walk me through the mechanics of that.
So the James Lange theory asserts that your emotional experience relies entirely on your physiological arousal.
Okay.
Imagine you walk out your front door and there is a massive, highly aggressive, venomous snake coiled on your welcome mat.
My sympathetic nervous system goes into absolute overdrive. Heart racing, stomach drops, full fight or flight.
Right. Now, intuitively you think, I feel terrified and therefore my heart is racing.
Yeah, that seems obvious.
The James Lange theory argues the exact opposite. It posits that the physiological changes happen first, and your brain interpreting those physical changes is what causes the feeling of fear.
Wait, really? So no physical arousal means no emotion?
According to the theory, yes.
That feels incredibly counterintuitive, but it's a theory. So how do we make it a falsifiable hypothesis? We can't just, like, unwire someone's nervous system to see if they still feel fear.
Well, you don't have to. You find individuals whose nervous systems have already been altered.
Oh, I see.
To make it falsifiable, we create an if-then statement. If a person is entirely unaware of their physical arousal, then they will not experience the emotion of fear.
Okay, that's testable.
Right. And researchers tested this.
Yeah.
Specifically, a 1988 study by Twalis, Diener, and Gallagher, they tested this hypothesis with individuals who had suffered severe spinal column injuries.
Because of the nerve damage, they couldn't feel those bodily changes.
Exactly. So the researchers presented them with emotional stimuli.
And what did the data actually show?
It showed that these individuals did still experience emotion, though perhaps a little less intensely than before their injuries.
So the original hypothesis, that you would feel zero emotion without physical awareness, was proven wrong.
It was falsified by the empirical evidence. And here is why that is a triumph of the scientific method. It didn't destroy the whole field of emotion research.
Right, it just meant the theory needed a tune-up.
Exactly. It forced researchers to refine the theory, to look at how cognitive appraisal and physical arousal interact. It moved our understanding closer to reality.
I see. So a good scientific theory essentially sticks its chin out and says, take a swing at me, design a test that could break me.
And that's a great way to put it.
Which brings to mind a giant figure in psychology. If we connect this to the bigger picture, how does this demand for falsifiability apply to someone like Sigmund Freud?
Ooh, Freud.
Yeah, his ideas are everywhere in our culture.
This is exactly where Freud collides with modern empirical science. I mean, Freud was a pioneer. He popularized the massive concept that a vast majority of our psychological processes are unconscious.
Which is huge.
Huge. But a fatal criticism of Freud's specific theories, like his division of the human mind into the id, the ego, and the superego, is that they are fundamentally unfalsifiable.
Because there's no empirical footprint of the id that you can measure in a lab.
Right. You cannot design an empirical observation to disprove the existence of the id.
So it's not a testable if-then statement.
Exactly. If you do something entirely selfish, a Freudian would say, well, that's your id driving your behavior.
Okay.
But if you feel the selfish urge and you repress it and you do the right thing, they say, your ego overpowered your id.
It's a closed loop.
Yes.
No matter what behavior you exhibit, the theory just bends to explain it after the fact. It can never be proven wrong, which means it can never be rigorously proven right.
Spot on. Freud is taught today for his historical significance, but modern science demands falsifiability.
Right.
That is the only way we build confidence.
Wow. Okay, dropping the student persona for a second.
Class dismissed.
Class dismissed. To summarize what we've explored today for everyone listening, Research isn't just a bunch of academics in white coats doing busy work.
Not at all.
It is the crucial shield we have against unchecked intuition, blind luck, and bad public policy. It requires a continuous loop of inductive and deductive reasoning.
And most importantly, the courage to be proven wrong through falsifiability.
Yes. So, Professor, do you have a final thought to leave our listeners with today?
I do. I want you, the listener, to ponder this on your own. We've spent this time talking about how rigorous science requires falsifiability, but turn that lens inward.
Oh, I like where this is going.
Where in your own personal life are you holding on to a theory about yourself or a rigid theory about the people around you that you haven't allowed to be tested?
That's tough.
Are your core personal beliefs falsifiable? Are you open to new evidence changing your mind? Or are you acting as your own unfalsifiable Freud, bending every new life experience just to prove you were right all along?
Man, that is a question that will absolutely keep me up tonight. Thank you for the lecture today, and thank you, the listener, for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.